Hey, what's going on? I'm Clayton Jacobs, aka Esoteric Quality, back at it again with another video, and we're going to be talking about the ins and outs of the legal system. But before I delve into that, and this is going to pertain to the legal system in the United States, but before I delve into that, I'm just going to talk real quick about my music and what's going on with my life. I've been writing a lot of stuff, but I've just been going through a lot of stuff with, the mother of my son, and then losing two people that I was really close to within like a month's time, and just haven't been taking all of it well. And in addition, like, I'm sure a lot of people are like, well, why haven't you released anything new since Conniving Mastermind back in 2018? So I'm going to explain that. For one, the audio engineer, J-Mod, that I was working with, ended up moving out of state because he left Arizona. I ended up leaving Arizona in 2022. Worst decision I ever made. Except for the fact that, I got my son out of it. I love him, but other than that, it's been just downhill since then. But then during COVID, I wanted to record, and, other people were just scared because of the COVID pandemic. So, and I didn't have the studio set up at home to be able to do all of it myself like that. So, and then in, 2022, I started to lay down the foundation for some stuff. And then that, when I was with my ex, so there was that, and then it just, but I never got the chance to lay vocals down, still haven't gotten to do that. But I got a lot of stuff, like I said, coming up, because I'm going to be doing the Hungry to Succeed album, and then also like Alcohol, Blunts, and Tears, which is really going to be a very, very sad project about what I've been going through, and it's really, really going to be a very sad project. So there's that. Obviously, my GoFundMe is still up for the legal representation piece, because I need to get an attorney to represent me in the custody situation between me and my son's mother, so I can get full custody of my son, because she's been abusive and negligent when it comes to him, and then on top of that, has filed numerous false police reports against me, has tried to have me killed, etc. And the latest thing was that she placed a restraining order on me, and again, like, I'm not being indicted for any type of criminal activity or anything like that. You can even verify this with the Denver Police Department. So, none of that's going on, but yet I'm allegedly the criminal in her mind. And meanwhile, she's had 2 child abuse charges and has tried to have me assassinated, blah, etc. So, like I said, I've just been going through a lot and dealing with a lot. But without further ado, I want to provide the value that I intended to provide with this video and talk about the legal system in the United States. So here's how that works. So there are what they call primary legal resources, and then there's secondary legal resources. So at the federal level, you have the United States Code, which is a compilation of the public laws that have been codified into it. In the United States, public laws are laws that Congress makes, and usually a public law has the congressional number followed by the law number, right? And then for the United States Code, it goes by title, chapter, section, subsection. But usually, for example, like the ADA, which is in 42 United States Code, chapter 26, but it'll start, but usually for citation purposes, it's like 42 United States Code, section 12101. So, that's how that works. And then, there are compilations of laws that are not codified in the U.S. Code that were still public laws, and those are codified in something known as the statutes at large. Then, when it comes to federal regulations, they are usually promulgated by the secretary of whatever administrative agency at the federal level it is, with the exception of the Justice Department. The Justice Department, the regulations are promulgated by the Federal Attorney General. So that's usually how that works. When regulations are published, they are published in the Federal Register as a draft. There's usually a public comment period, and then those public comments also get added to the Federal Register, and then the final rules are also published in the Federal Register and then also within the Code of Federal Regulations. Then you have court cases, and there's a hierarchy when it comes to the court system. So for the Supreme Court, you have you have what they call like the U.S. reporter and like the Supreme Court reporters. So like and so usually it goes by like volume number, and then it'll go by the page number within the volume number that the case is found at. So that's usually what happens there. Then you have the Federal Circuit Courts of Appeals, followed by the district courts. Now there's also like the bankruptcy courts, there's the tax courts, etc. And that's at like the federal level. So at the state level, there is what they call like state statutes. Those are usually codified into something like the state's code. For example, in Iowa, they have it as like the Iowa code. In Arizona and in Colorado, they have it as the like in Arizona it's the Arizona Revised Statutes. In Colorado, it's the Colorado Revised Statutes. Also, states will usually have an administrative code as well. And similarly, those registers are published in what they call usually like administrative bulletins, and there's usually public comment periods on them as well. A lot of people don't know that they can actually comment on a lot of this stuff before it gets put into effect, but yeah. And then the case law is similar. You know, you've got the state Supreme Court. You usually got the courts of appeals. States a lot of times may have like district courts, and there are those that have like superior courts as well. So every state, like I said, is different. Sometimes juvenile courts are separate from the superior courts. Sometimes they're not. It just, every state system with the courts is a little bit different, but yeah. And then and like that's usually how that stuff works. Also, at the federal and the state level, when it comes to the attorney generals, they will publish what they call attorney general opinions. Those are usually found within Westlaw, and I'm going to get into that one in a minute, because there are really two key databases when it comes to legal research that you will need when you're trying to look at stuff. Now, like statutes and regulations, like anyone can usually go on to the legislature's website and look at. Also, like court rules, because there's court rules, and usually the Supreme Court has a list of rules. The court rules, and they usually provide the court rules that the other courts will follow, but a lot of times appellate courts and the district courts, superior courts will have their own rules that are local to them as well, in addition to what the Supreme Court has promulgated as far as the rules go. And a lot of times with those rules, they have advisory committees that deal with the rulemaking process, and again, a lot of times there's comment periods on all of those things as well. But getting back to like legal databases and legal research stuff. So a lot of times, if you are unrepresented, you can still get the same access to legal research that the attorneys get access to through things like Westlaw and LexisNexis. But what you usually have to do is go to the law library and get it. And so every state has public law libraries, and especially if you happen to be blind like me, if you contact them by email, a lot of times they'll send you the stuff that you ask for. Now, sometimes they'll tell you that you need to come in, but even if you need to come in, accessibility of the law library computers can vary, because sometimes they have accessible computers, sometimes not. A lot of times what you can do is you can ask them to talk to the IT department and tell them, like, you know, you can make it accessible to screen reader users with NVDA or with JAWS or System Access, Windowized VoiceOver, etc. So, like, you can give them options and then let them decide what they want to do. But regardless, a lot of times the law librarians will really help you out with the stuff you need. Now, they can't give legal advice, so don't go in there trying to ask them to give you legal advice specific to what your case is. But if you go in and you know what it is that you're trying to find, they usually will be very, very helpful. And that leads me to the next piece of this, which is that in addition to the primary legal resources, you have secondary legal resources. Those include treatises and practice aids, which are usually books and materials that attorneys will use, and usually they're written by attorneys, and they a lot of times put it into a book, and they reference sections of the law, etc., and they reference cases. You also have books, or you also have legal encyclopedias. Again, those are kind of similar to like treatises, but like American jurisprudence is one of the most common ones. But every state also has, and American jurisprudence is federal, but a lot of times every state has like their own legal encyclopedia articles and legal encyclopedias, as well as like the treatises. You also have law reviews. Law reviews are articles that are usually written by law students at the law schools, but sometimes they're put out by like other organizations like the National Law Review, or you know, there's other organizations that put out law review articles as well, but usually it's law students, not always though. So that's like a quick breakdown of how the legal system works. Let me know if you have any questions. Now, I will tell you right off the bat that I am not an attorney, so I can't give legal advice, and if I were to try to give you legal advice, that could be considered unauthorized practice of law. But I will at least try to direct you with the right resources if you've got questions. So I will do that. But and you might ask, like, well, how do you know this stuff? Well, for one, when I was in college, I did take legal classes, although my attempts at getting both a finance degree and a law degree, and also a degree in computer programming, were thwarted by the colleges violating my ADA rights. And even after going after them, and even after prevailing, they still continued to violate. So it just got to a point where I ended up leaving the colleges because I wasn't going to get anywhere with it. But that's okay. Like, I still get to help, you know, my fellow people at the grassroots level, and that's what matters most to me. But even before that, in 2011, I was so tired of the government violating my rights that I decided to start learning the legal system on my own. And then one other thing to note as well, before I close out of this, is that every government agency has policy manuals. Now, the policy manuals are supposed to follow the law, but they don't always. And that's why, like, I usually, these days, because I know my way around the legal system, I look at what the legal framework is around an issue before I look at the policies. But yeah, that's just something else you might want to be aware of. And again, with policy implementation, it's similar to the other things that I mentioned. There's usually public comment on that kind of thing. So yeah, I hope this helps. If you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to shoot them over. Peace out, and I wish all the best.
Viewfinder. Recording time 16 minutes, 5 seconds. 1 times. 20%. Pause recording. Stop video. Take photo. Button. Stop video.